morning, everybody. Welcome to the MAP, the Mental Health and Addiction Podcast. My name is Andy Bernstein, and we started this podcast in late 2019 as a way to bring open and honest discussion to a topic that's affecting 1 in 4 Americans, which is mental health. And we're thrilled to be here. And joining me, as always, is my friend and colleague, the great Willie Drinkwater. Willie, who are you?
Good morning, everybody. Hello, I'm a person.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I've also been working in the field of mental health and addiction for over 30 years now and stuff. I'm an educator for UMass Boston in the Addiction Counseling Education Program. My primary course is addiction with co-occurring disorders, otherwise known as mental health issues in addition to addiction. So.
Trauma, grief, abandonment.
Trauma, grief, abandonment, the big 3. You show me someone that's been in the detox 5, 6, 10 times. I'll show you somebody that's had a mental health issue that hasn't been addressed. And the trifecta, usually, more often than not, is trauma, grief, and abandonment issues that have never been addressed. So.
You are also a professor at UMass Boston, and you come from where? Where did you start before you?
I got my start in the world of entertainment and media at the Rock of Boston, WBCN 104.1 FM. No longer around, but not forgotten and stuff.
That's right, the big mattress crew.
The big mattress, yeah. The creek don't rise if the good Lord's willing. If no one pushes the little red button, we'll do it all over again tomorrow between the hours of 6 and 10 here on the big mattress. So.
All right, so you're qualified to talk about this stuff. Kristen Perry Long, who is our other co-host, she is on assignment. I feel like I say that all the time, but she's on assignment.
Well, you do, yeah.
But I do.
Yeah.
As for me, I've been in broadcasting and media for a very long time. I've created a lot of programs and campaigns to address social issues, and mental health and addiction is something I'm very passionate about and wanted to do my part to create more talk and exposure around the issue. So before we get started with our friend, Jack Titleman, America's favorite former DEA agent and an expert in drug compliance, Willie, we talked yesterday about life after the pandemic.
Yes.
And we're all kind of looking at, well, you and I were talking about how we're looking at life in a different, broader scale of figuring out what's next after going through this. And as you said, it's called existential anxiety. And as a clinical professional, what does it mean? And are you seeing a lot of this currently in your practice?
Yeah. No, at the present time, existential anxiety is basically, it's almost like the old Viktor Frankl and Rolla May, man's search for meaning. Who am I? What am I doing here? We're coming out of this period where a lot of folks went into self-reflection about, where they were at this point in their lives. And do they want to continue? I mean, I know even in the field of therapy, most of us had to make the switch over to teletherapy last April and May. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of us saying, hey, I really don't want to go back to an office full time again. I know myself, I'll probably start doing a couple mornings a week during the summer, especially for a new client, just so I can do an eyeball, initial assessment. But, if you want a session, in the afternoon, it'll need to be teletherapy. Because I was leaving Beverly 3-4 nights a week, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And I don't want to do that anymore. And my dog doesn't want me to do that anymore. He's gotten used to me being home all the time now. So
your priorities shifted a little bit after spending this time. And and
a lot of people, though, it's really hitting them. It's like, they've got this, they get the mindset going. It's like, oh my God, how old am I? Am I going to die soon? How many years do I have left? Do I really want to continue doing what I have been doing? So, I've had incidences over the last month of people going inpatient psych because the anxiety has just taken them over the top, and people back into detox again, the whole bit.
So I don't want to die. Okay. I like my life. I don't want to die. But I've had a lot of stress these days because I'm watching. What was I watching? So I'm hearing about people die. Like my friend Bernie, he goes to a funeral every week. It's unbelievable. Every week he's got a funeral, it seems like. I was watching real TV, and it was an autopsy on Macho Man Savage. And he had an enlarged heart. And then so that kind of freaked me out. I'm like, what's my heart like? He died at 58. Then you hear these commercials on the pharmacy commercials, and it's like,
Yeah.
I know I'm on borrowed time, but we all are, but it's kind of freaking me out a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Well, that's where I think, really having a good sense of humor, as a coping mechanism too. I mean, I joke all the time. I'm 65, and I tell my sons all the time, yeah, I'm at my midlife. And they go, you're going to be 130 years old, huh? And it's like, yeah, if they have to put my brain on top of a cyborg. I mean, I don't dwell on death, but I think in Western culture in particular, nobody wants to talk about death or the end, or, so we're really not prepared. When it hits, it really hits people hard, when it's a family member or a friend, because it's something we generally don't talk about. I mean, the first big book on death and dying was, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and that goes back to 1967. There's been a few books since, but it's really isn't something that people freely talk about,
No, and the pandemic, I mean, it's like, and like we were saying yesterday, like, spending time by yourself. A lot of people can't do the time in the hole because there was a lot of time in the hole, And
well, there's been articles the last few weeks too. There was one in the New York Times. It was about how older people tend to have fared better during the pandemic than younger people have.
Why?
Younger people tend to be more socially active and always on the go, and going to whatever outside the home. Home is a place where they get a bite to eat and they crash, then they go back out again into the social world. Where, I mean, somebody like myself, when this hit, it was like, oh, awesome. I'm going to be home, and I don't mind being home. I have, my lovely wife Yvette, 41 years Monday and stuff, and Mazel tov, yeah, and and I have my dog and my garden, and I'm content. I mean, I was joking with somebody last week that, since last May, I've gassed my truck up maybe 4 to 5 times. Right, That's it. I go to my office like once every couple of months just to get the mail.
My life's in a 5-mile radius, literally, and I'm totally happier. And it was like, because I had said, I don't want to drive in traffic anymore. I don't want to battle Boston traffic. I'm done. And I really adjusted my life to being close. So, but if you're out there still trying, boots on the ground, like I got to do this, it's like, then I think it takes a toll.
Well, we're also seeing in businesses now, they're totally reevaluating, how much office space do we actually need? Are we going to do a hybrid with people from now on, where they work, at home 3 days a week and they come in 2 days a week,
My wife's not going back to work until back to the office until September. She works at Harvard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. I love it. I'm upstairs. She's downstairs.
Yeah.
It's a normal work day.
I've got the other way. I'm downstairs and she's upstairs.
Wasn't that a PBS thing? We talked about real quick. Any quick words of wisdom of how people can tackle this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is to really try to, to keep in contact with your friends and your loved ones, and, and develop hobbies and interests that may have been like on the back burner for a long time. And, it's a good time to, during the pandemic, it's been a good time where people have gotten back into hobbies and interests again that they let slide for years.
I've taught myself how to do a lot of stuff during this time, and I love it. And, but
yes. Thank you for the leggings that you made me. They were really nice. Yes. Thank you.
Well, we talked about time in the hole. On that note, we talked about time in the hole, and we talked about friends and loved ones. Well, we're going to bring in a friend and loved one, and somebody who knows a little bit about time in the hole, being a law enforcement guy. Let's welcome my friend and former colleague with our first radio show, Crosscheck. We're going to welcome Jack Titleman. He is a former DEA agent for 25 years from the New York City field office. He is now president and founder of Titan Drug Group. Titan Group Drug Compliance Experts. And because you've changed the name a couple times.
Oh, yeah. Titan Group. Just say Titan Group.
Titan Group. Jack is an expert in the field of drug compliance, and which we want to learn more about. And he also has some amazing stories, and just thrilled to have him on our show. I wish I didn't wait so long to have you. How are you, my friend? Right. How you
I know
been?
it's been a long time. This used to be a weekly occurrence.
It is
So
still.
I think it was,
Yeah.
well, for you it is. For it was, I think it was a every Wednesday weekly occurrence for a while for me
I
myself.
know, loved it. Then you got real busy with work and
Yeah.
your company, and it was hard. But
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I was like, wow, we were doing an hour and I was finding time. I couldn't even find time for that 1 hour, but you think about how when you can get busy like that and I mean, because I wanted to prepare, I wanted to make sure I didn't just jump on at the last second and sound like an idiot, but no, yeah, we've, it was fun while it lasted. Yeah, the busyness has just meant that. And I heard you guys, in the beginning and Willie, great advice and, about how to deal with the pandemic and you stayed within your 5 mile circle. I
yeah,
traveled during the whole all of 2020. Literally
did you really?
the minute they opened up the planes, I was right back on the plane. And, it's one of those things, my job, in doing compliance, mostly, whether it's on the human side of healthcare, or on the veterinary side or wherever, a lot of time I have to be face to face. We have to be client facing. If there's a drug theft in a hospital, it's kind of hard to investigate that from my computer at my desk. So
So you've been doing your thing. You've been going
yeah.
around the country. Um, Before we get started, because I want to touch on drug compliance and what
Yes,
you're doing with Titan. But before we get started, give us a little background about yourself and how did you get into this space of drug compliance?
you got it. For those listeners out there that have never heard me before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I when I was in college, to make a long story short, I went to college originally to be a teacher. I was going to be a gym coach. I played baseball in college, and I thought that was going to be my life. I was going to be a pro baseball player, and fall back on coaching. Well, that didn't happen because nobody makes the major leagues, very few. So that turned into a discovery, a change that we've all done, and that's where I ended up getting a degree in criminal justice and starting my career in the 80s with DEA, of all places, and in Florida to start with the DEA, and especially during the 80s. So that was it was a great time to be part of drug enforcement. And I transferred. I was in New York City for a very long time, and I ended my career in New York City. I was promoted to supervisor. I was in the Phoenix, Arizona office, our Atlanta office, and after 9/11,
Like Frank Fagluzzi in the
Frank, yeah, he's a good guy there, Frank.
yeah, Frankie.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So so I did, like you said, I was actually when I retired, it was 26 years with the DEA, and thought long and hard about what it is that I did during that time and what I could bring to whether I could bring subject matter expertise to anyone that had gotten in trouble, whether it was someone that had got, that was what I originally thought I was going to do, was represent people along with some attorneys, or and then the opioid epidemic kind of crept up on us, right? Which I wasn't paying much attention to, and which turned into me doing heroin cases and pill cases near the end of my career. And that's when I started to see how devastating, this opioid epidemic or crisis, affected the country, in which we talked about numerous times over and over again. But, being in law enforcement during that time, being an agent, looking at heroin users specifically, it was an urban issue. And only looking at them as junkies, not understanding addiction at the time,
Right.
But then slowly realizing that I was an addict, because I was one of the ones that was given Oxycontin for my back,
Mhm.
which turned into a very large amount of Oxycontin, over 400 milligrams of Oxycontin a day, which was a pretty large amount to come off of. So I was, conned into it like everybody else when I originally was hurt by taking the pills. And then as you turn around and look, it's too late. And then you have to figure out, how am I going to get out of this hole?
Right.
Which we all know is not easy. It's one of the hardest things I ever did.
You were a
So,
catcher, right? You play baseball. I don't know why I remember that, but you were a
yeah,
catcher.
I was. Matter of fact, what's hilarious is I was just I was just walking by and there's a picture of me in my catcher's uniform from high school, actually.
Oh, that's
sitting in
cool.
a pile of pictures right behind me. That's the most craziest thing in the world.
Huh.
So yeah, so then when and then I got the idea that there was a whole sector in healthcare, people that are doctors that have DEA registrations that that purchase and use, whether you're a doctor, you're a pharmacy, you're a veterinarian, your narcotic treatment program. All of these locations are registered and and have DEA has oversight responsibility to manage these people. So because that is really what fueled the opioid epidemic, was the indiscriminate prescribing of opioids throughout the whole country. And DEA just let it happen. It was unfettered access. There was, BS fines here and there. Oh, what's a couple $100 million to these companies? As we see, it means nothing. So, all of that being said, we privatized the DEA diversion function, which is the civil side of DEA.
Okay.
And so now what we do is we will go in, hopefully proactively to a healthcare system, conduct a series of DEA mock audits to
Okay.
ensure that we want to shake the tree and see what falls out.
Right.
So it can get expensive. We're working with a healthcare system that just was fined $8 million from DEA for non-compliance.
When you talk about non-compliance, okay,
Yeah.
so, from you, I've learned about, this, explain what non-compliance is, because I think that would be important as far as, and what it represents to the public. How does it influence the public?
Indeed. So if you think about traditionally drug diversion, which is, that's the whole section of DEA, the drug diversion section, and drug diversion is drug theft. And what really, started this, if you think about, compliance, end user, which is grandma, which gets her bottle of Percocet, which is sitting in her medicine cabinet. When people come over, or grandson, whoever helps themselves to her, to her medication, that's literal definition of drug diversion. That's how it started. That's how people, have, whether it's cleaning lady, anytime people will go over to parties, going to the bathroom, they're rifling, they're going through your stuff, right? And that is just that's unfortunate. That's where we're at. But so that's that type of compliance. The enforced compliance. What we do is dealing with training and educating the staff members at the CVS pharmacy down the street to ensure that they understand red flags, that they know that they're getting prescriptions that might be that might be counterfeit, that might have come from a pill mill doctor. This is what we need to educate them so that they can see these red flags, so that this stuff doesn't make its way through the system and get in our kids, and work their way to the high school, or whatever, for the local kids. Because then we're running into the major issue right now of what kids are taking, what people are taking, that are pills that are coming off of the darknet, that are coming from the internet, are not pharmauticals, right?
They're laced with fentanyl, right? I mean,
exactly, right. And you guys have probably talked about it a million times.
Yeah.
But that's what we're seeing. And then when we start to see these perfectly produced pills that look just like whether it's a Vicodin, Percocet, or benzodiazepine, doesn't matter. They're being pressed to look perfectly now. We start to see some of that stuff, as it works its way through the supply chain. So, we're in a really, so that's another type of compliance. When we're dealing with counterfeits, we don't deal with counterfeits that often, but they become a major issue, specifically, when we're dealing with, when people start to try and bring back medications into facilities, we don't even know what they are. So things just have to immediately get thrown away. So, that's what we feel, that the most important thing that we're bringing to the industry is education, as that, and that's where it all starts.
Right. And one of the things I realized, and Willie, you can chime in too. You're very quiet right now. But one of the things that I learned from you, and this is crazy, but like vet clinics, people first of all, staff steal drugs, right?
Yep.
There's examples.
99% of all theft inside of all healthcare is inside jobs.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was the big case up on the North Shore here where there was a pharmacy tech who was diverting medications from a very well-known hospital chain, and basically saying that they were expired, and
That's
then
right.
she was taking those and she was selling them all. I mean, they figured it was probably about she probably took in about $400,000 over like a couple of years and stuff before they caught up to her.
I remember
the other
that
thing,
case.
yeah, up on the
Yeah.
North Shore, and then the thing I'm hearing now from some clients is you're getting the dealers are buying the pill presses, and it looks like a perk, but it's filled with fentanyl. And and I've had a client or two say, if you squeeze it between your fingertips, it instantly bursts, so they know it isn't the real deal and stuff.
Right.
So that's a big one where they can. I think you can even buy the pill presses on like Amazon or something. It's crazy.
You can. And that's the thing is it keeps it literally every pill press, whether it's a small pill press or one that would fit into this room, every one of those has to be tracked down by DEA. And so every purchase off of Amazon, the suppliers are supposed to be sending. There's a form, I forgot what the form is, that gets set, the sale gets sent over to the DEA, and they're supposed to look into those and follow and follow those down, investigate those. So. I mean, it's almost impossible. There's, it's just like anything else. It's, it's like CBD, right? Today the FDA, of course, they oversee, they have the oversight of CBD, but you can buy CBD that's made in my bathtub at the gas station down the street.
CVS is selling it now.
Yeah, there's no oversight right now, and they've had to just go, well, what are we going to do? We can't. It's impossible.
We might as well get on the action if people are making money on it.
We missed that boat.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. When in your travels, since you've been in business for what,
almost 4 years? 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. Okay, because I'm right, because you had just started. Have you come across something that's fishy, will you contact somebody in the field office? Have you done that?
Yeah, most of the time we're dealing with, and look, drug diversion in and of itself is a very insidious crime. It's very difficult to prove. Sometimes, their statistics are out there that it could take 18 months to find a bad nurse. Over time, right? And so in statistics that the Nursing Association will lie to us about, anywhere from 15 to 20% of nurses are suffering from substance use disorder of some type. So we know the numbers are the same across all of healthcare, whether it's veterinarian technicians or people that work wherever. So so we do run across things that we have to turn over to the DEA and to the local police. Recently, I had to go out to South Dakota, where a lot of times it's veterinary hospitals, so they don't have the control that regular hospitals have. We got a call that a doctor out there was doing surgery and asked the technicians to bring him a fentanyl patch, a 75 microgram fentanyl patch, and the box was empty. So they went to give me a 50, that was empty, 25, they were all empty. So that became, obviously that was a drug theft and investigation. It turned out it was the cleaning lady that had helped herself to
wow.
She cleaned everything out. Yeah,
she did.
Clean, right? Yeah. That's her nickname.
She cleaned them right out
on the street. The cleaning lady.
Yeah, and that's where you have to be careful if you're working in facilities and you're using a key and someone's very friendly. And she used to have lunch with them, and she small little town, everybody knew everyone, but she saw where they hid the key. And then she changed her hours to the morning when no one was around, and she had unfettered access to the drug box. So we deal with a lot of those type things where we have to work with the doctors or the facilities to go ahead and turn those investigations over to the DEA.
I mean, as far as a diversion also too. I mean, I've had the clients over the years and stuff where the method was you get a prescription, you keep half, you sell half. So
That's
I mean
right.
that must be even more difficult to track,
That's right.
Yeah.
So Jack, one of the things that I've talked about on this show, and again, this is something that you have hipped me to, I guess, is that I believe, as somebody who's not in recovery, I'm on a journey, but not in recovery, as someone who's not working in the field per se, one of the things that I think that how do we how do we educate the general public who don't have any kind of an affiliation or attachment to addiction issues? How do you make them appreciate what's going on? And I said that I think one of the big problems to get on the radar screen is we need to focus on the national security side of this to make it relevant to the people who aren't familiar with the term and what it means to them from a security. So can you speak to that? Like dream.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I have opined, several times, whether, on other, I think I've been on Fox News, other entities out there that, have talked about, kind about the overall security issues in this country, why it is that fentanyl can pile in here through the mail and, from China in under very small amounts that equate to very large amounts by the time, things get here. And, and then just the whole border issue that, building a wall is never going to stop drugs from coming in this country. There's all sorts of other ways. As a matter of fact, when that was the wall issue, we had a DEA guy who was for the wall. They found the one guy that was like, hey, come on, let's be reasonable. Stuff comes in container ships all day long, way more than some mule bringing it across on his back. Within a week or two, at the port of Philly was the largest seizure ever of cocaine that came in.
Oh, this was just recently.
It was, I think it was last summer.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a monstrous. It was just this gigantic amount that was seized at the port. And it proved my point that a wall's not going to stop the massive influx of drugs into this country because of the demand. Right. Yeah. So it's the demand is what we have to deal, is what we have to deal with. And then that becomes that education part is how do we get in front of every single person, that's either, thinking about using drugs for the first time, or they're in the middle of crisis or whatever. And, talk about why it is that one person has that demand, and how it is we can get back in front of them and not use something disingenuous, like just say no. But use
Nancy.
Right, yeah, right. Of course, I'm sure it had a few kids that said no. But so I guess, Andy, to your point is, DEA, they'll come across that they're doing such a phenomenal job, but they've been failing since day one.
Yeah,
right. So not only have they failed us as a law enforcement agency to stop the drugs from coming in this country, but they failed us as a country by really not educating us to what addiction is and covering up the fact that we were in the middle of an opioid epidemic for at least 10 years and not really doing anything at all. So then now I can tell you what DEA is doing now.
Yeah.
So what they should have been doing was what we started doing, going around and talking to practitioners, and talking like the DEA 360 program, which I introduced you to, right?
Yep.
Very, very similar. So there's iterations of the DEA 360 program that are still out there. So throughout,
it's a PR campaign, though, really.
Totally. Yeah, it's all it is.
Yep.
But so now what DEA is doing is they're actually going and putting on training and education for the doctors, for the nurses, for the pharmacists, for everyone out there that they should have been doing it all along, teaching us about red flags, Mr. Pharmacist. What is it I'm supposed to really look at? Mm-hmm. In the past, all they would do is say, go read the manual. It's all in the manual. But no one's going to do that.
No,
right?
No.
So I need someone to tell me how to do it, to walk me through it now. So finally, because DEA's being, they're part of the opioid lawsuit too. Their failure.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you've got the DEA doing now what the pharmaceutical firms were doing in the first place.
So they're accountable.
Pharmaceutical firms were going out and talking about, there's no risk involved with this.
Exactly.
So now the DEA is going in and doing the counter education, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. I got a pretty good education on the DEA stuff. And I kind of after, I kind of met some of the guys and stuff. And they had a woman in from Washington, and it was funny. Like, one of the people in the meeting, I went to a task force meeting, and one of the people said, we really wanted to do something in our town, and we were looking for funding to be able to do it on a grassroots level. And they said, well, we can bring sandwiches in, right? But yet the woman in Washington was like, she basically bought all kinds of promotional materials. That's where they were spending the money on
Yeah.
brochures and pamphlets and
Here's your trinket.
And I
No,
was
good
like,
luck.
that's so messed up, because the only one who's benefiting from it is the guy selling the promotion, the guy, girl, or woman selling the promotional items or the commercial printing.
Right.
Yet here's somebody who could actually benefit from the funding to do something on a grassroots level in their town. So I was a little bothered by that. Like, I was like,
Miffed.
insincere.
Yeah, because you know what, to that point is the DEA, if you really think about it, the DEA was put together, was produced, was created all for me, for the special agent, right? Everything else, there's a formula. I think it's like 15.7 ancillary support staff for one special agent. So that's how the agency was created. We're a law enforcement function. This is our job, to go out and lock up drug dealers, and we need all the support these limited agents can get. No one ever thought about really, how do we deal with drug addiction? Remember, when I started, it was an urban issue. They're junkies. We really don't care about drug addicts. That's
and it goes suburban, and then everybody cares.
Oh my God! Now we have to deal with this. It's a social ill as our country, but so. All of that, being said, we fall back on the issue of pills. And, we just have a, certain subsect of our society that's never going to put a needle in their arm. Right. And, just because, so, we just have to, deal with the situation where DEA is, they just don't understand it. They thought that by cutting production of opioids was going to solve the opioid epidemic. All that did was force more people to the street. They cut production 50% this year, 30 to 50% of all opioids. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an agency that doesn't understand addiction at all. They only understand the law enforcement. If we can we're going to arrest our way out of the situation. That never happened, right? All we did was put a bunch of brown people in jail over the past 25 years.
Baltimore, as a matter of fact, my hometown of Baltimore, they will not arrest drug offenders, nor will they arrest prostitution. So, it's reduced violent crimes.
Yes.
But the problem is, nobody wants to do. Why would you want to do a convention in Baltimore City now?
I know,
right? And that's the rub, right? It's like, no, they shouldn't be arrested because they're sick.
But we're not giving them, like you said, the perfect part, Willie, was for every drug, someone who has a drug addiction problem, everybody has a mental health problem. And those people aren't getting any of that help, right? Of course, one of our largest, we have one of our clients is the largest inpatient Medicaid narcotics treatment facility in the country. So you can imagine what we've been dealing with over the past year with the pandemic, with people that didn't want to be in a cesspool of COVID within an inpatient facility because they're all street people anyways. And how to deal with of telemedicine, because we can't see these people, and making sure that now we had to set up outside locations to give them their methadone. We had to actually go out and rent motel space, on the street there, so everyone knew where to come because they couldn't get into the facility. So there's just, even for those people that don't have somewhere to live, that, like you said, we're in the hole for the past year. Imagine these poor people that are actually they're homeless, they're addicts. We have something for them. They want to, and a lot of time, I don't know how often that you've had a chance to deal with these inpatient Medicaid places that deal with the homeless. Is a lot of times they're just looking for a break. if they can come in for a week or two, be transitioned over to methadone or Suboxone so that they can get 3 meals a day,
The 3 hots on the cot, get their
that's
clothes
it.
washed.
You know, that's all.
Meds.
Just so they could feel human again. And then and they all sit and they have their, you know, every, you know, twice a day, you know, the group talks and everything. And I've spent a lot of time in the facility working with them. You know, it does work. Of course, there's, you know, you hear all the stuff that goes along with it. You know, you're talking with there's going to be fights and stuff, but overall, it's a good thing. And I wish there were, when you talk about what other opportunities, you know, would be out there, man, I mean, it would be great if our country really spent some of the opioid litigation money that's just sitting in an account somewhere, not being spent, that we could, you know, we could talk about, you know, providing more services like this, because not only is the addiction problem worse now than it's ever been, specifically opioid, but we're never going to get a handle on trying to stop this pandemic if we can't even keep people in the street, you know, that are, you know, supposed to be medicated. They're not getting it, and they're certainly not going to get their, you know, their COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It all goes down to the risky behavior that, you know, that goes along with drug use on the street, anyways.
As a company, are you looking, you know, as you grow and evolve, are you looking to add more education, or like, you know, from a community standpoint? Have you guys thought about that? Like,
you know, it's, you know, education is a vital part of what we do, you know, what we deliver to our clients, you know, specifically in the healthcare side. But it's also, it's educating the workers so that they educate people outside the hospital.
right.
All, you know, the talks and stuff that I've done, you know, outside the realm of compliance and healthcare, they have been few and far in between. It's just that I've certainly done them, you know, but it doesn't seem to be something that you know, that it's going on as much as it was before, and I really think that part of it is just the epidemic, is the COVID where we're in right now. You know, because I used to see all the time, it would be even locally, oh, we're having, you know, the local sheriff's office is putting on, you know, an opioid awareness.
You should do this like drug take back days.
Oh, yeah.
You were at one with us. Yeah.
That's right. And I think coming up, not this, maybe it's this weekend, is a drug take back weekend. I know there's one coming up.
That's right.
But even with that, it's been because of where we're at, is I've seen zero interest in combining these things with some type of education for the public.
I have somebody
just fell to the wayside.
I have somebody I want to connect you with. Actually, he does this. Scott Allen, who started the program with Plymouth County. I forgot the name of the program, but they have a great program about education. Yeah, and he's doing this. I don't know where it goes, but I definitely want to make that.
It's the sheriff's department, Andy.
Yeah, yeah.
Scott, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department, right?
Right. Chief Botieri and Chief Allen.
A matter of fact, I think I met them. Didn't you have them on your show?
I did.
Yeah.
Good dudes.
They were good guys. Yeah.
So real quick. Okay. So, if people want to get in touch with you, where could they go? Can you give your...
Okay, so the best way is through the website, which is www.titangroup.dea.com. And there's where you can send a message to the website. If you need to get a hold of me, my number is 347-723-8019. And, you know, and pretty much, I mean, if you are involved with, involved with the DEA, if you have a DEA registration, if you are working in anything that has to do with pharmaceuticals and you've gotten yourself in trouble or the DEA showed up.
You got yourself jammed up. No, I'm just, you still there?
No, Siri decided to jump in on me.
Oh, okay.
She cut you off.
The thing I want to ask you, okay, in our remaining minutes, I would be remiss if I didn't do this because you are a master storyteller. So one of the things, I remember the story about the holy water.
Yeah. Can
you tell the story about the holy water? Or is another one you can tell us?
No, that's a good one. That's a really good one. So that was a long-term case where we had gotten ourselves involved with these Dominican, drug gangs that were operating in New York City, specifically in the Heights. But they were having a drug war, but they were carrying their drug war out in the Dominican Republic, specifically in Santiago, Dominican Republic. And so this, guys were getting killed left and right. There were shootouts. It was a big war, but they weren't doing it in New York. They were just fighting it out down there. So when we had arrested several of the members, and we were the pressure was coming on where we would wiretaps, and we were source country. We were dealing with Mexico, but we needed to get these killers off the street. They decided that maybe the best way for them to survive this was to put a hit out on myself, my partner, and the district attorney at the time.
Okay.
And so we started to hear these things come across the wiretap. I was referred to as the fat bald guy in Spanish. My other guy, who was from Paraguay, they kept calling him the Puerto Rican, which he didn't like. So because no one likes Puerto Ricans in that world. So but to make a long story short, when we heard they had contacted and paid for the services of a Haitian witch doctor, supposedly paid like $3,000 for the top Haitian witch doctor to basically to sit there and put a hex and a hit, some type of hex on myself and everyone, that we were going to just, we were going to have a horrible end to our life through whatever he had mixed up in his cauldron for us. So when my partner Freddie heard about this, his family, they're from South America, they believe in this stuff. Okay. And it truly, he was shocked when he heard it. And we went lights and sirens from 99 10th Avenue, literally in 3 cars, up to the Bronx to this church, his Catholic church, that had a line of people from South America, Mexico, waiting to get holy water that they had in this church to ward off, the evil spirits. Well, because of, having, New York City Police Department as our, getting us up there, we literally went right in this church, went right to the front of the line, started filling up our cups with this holy water. Literally, Freddie's outside, drenching him stuff with it all over him. His car, he's pouring it in his car. He's literally having a panic attack. I'm Jewish, and I'm like, I don't care. Give me all the holy water you got. I'm pouring it all. I'm drinking it. I was like, man, it's all going to the big guy anyway. So So I'm like freaking out. He's freaking out. He's taking the stuff home. I'm like, what do I do? He goes, take it home. Put it by your bed. So, it was quite a story. And then to make so then it got even crazier. They ended up hiring a local witch doctor in the city, who we heard said she was going to go. In New York City, you can buy anything. You want a live goat, you can get a goat. Anything live to eat.
That's
right?
New York. Yep.
That's it. So she had went and got a rabbit, a beautiful little rabbit. So they were going to boil and and do all the stuff that you do and stick the knives in it to take care of us. Again, lights and sirens. We're going to find this woman. We're going to grab this rabbit before he can be boiled up and make so that we have holes in our head. So we literally catch this girl right before she goes in. And she's like, no, she starts giving us excuses. No, we're having rabbit tonight. I'm going to cook the rabbit. Right. And we're like, oh, really? Okay. So, we're like, I don't think so. So we basically take this is a white rabbit. So we're like, we're going to release the white rabbit, somewhere in New York City in one of the parks. And all I could think was, this is a white rabbit. New York City's full of red-tailed hawks that just feast on pigeons all day long. This rabbit's going to be eaten in a second, white rabbit floating around. So someone took the white rabbit home. I'm not sure where he went, but we end up going to the apartment. We knock on this lady's apartment, and it turns out that this lady was legitimately a witch doctor. People from the neighborhood would come to her, and she would, mix up her, her spells for people. When the door opened up, I'm with Freddie. There were candles lining the floor. There were petals, rose petals on the floor. The lady comes, she's in a muumuu. This lady was she was LT in drag. This was a woman built like LT in a muumuu. I'm looking at this woman walking down the hallway, about 250, and she's like, what can I do for you, officers? Freddie starts to literally faint because she's coming out the door, and he's like, stop right there, don't touch me. He's like, are you a bad witch? Are you a bad witch? And I don't even know what's going on. I'm like, what's a bad witch? You're a
Jewish guy from Florida.
Right. She goes, I I am losing. She goes, I only do good spells. And I'm like, and he's like, we got to get out of here. That was the craziness that we dealt with on this case. And it was just, it took you into the world of the subworld of what we would deal with that I never even knew existed.
You told me a story about some woman who hid drugs in her private area.
Oh, that was so, if you're an addict and you might end up in jail for a day or two before you bond out or get your bail, you're going to secrete enough, probably Suboxone strips or pills or meth, something to get you through until you get out. And most of them would have a plastic bag with either methadone or Suboxone in their private parts. Every day they would put it in there. Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Like from a self-care standpoint, like how did you stay sane, or did you stay sane?
Some guys didn't. Some guys went to alcohol. There was a lot when I started. Alcoholism was horrible. A lot of guys drank. I guess I got numb to a lot of seeing the worst in people, and I'm an empath. I always want to help people.
Me too.
So I looked at things different. I was the odd DEA guy.
It exhausts us, by the way.
It does.
It's exhausting.
So it was difficult because I always wanted to help. So I always wanted to help, and it was just, you knew you couldn't help everyone.
Right, you can't save the world. Listen, my friend, thank you.
Well, good seeing you. You too, Willie.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, nice to see you today.
Can we have you back? Will you come back?
Absolutely. Yeah,
all right.
Certainly.
Cool.
We'll do it in the summertime.
Would love it. And give your web address and your.
It's Titan Group, and it's www.titangroupdea.com.
Awesome. And Jack Titleman, thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
All right, we will catch you next time.
Thank you.
Billy, on behalf of Mike Weber at Mission Control back in Foxboro and at Foxboro Cable Access Television, and Willie Drinkwater, you've been listening to The Map. Before we sign off, Willie, how about Jack? Is he not the best?
Yeah. Well, he's real and authentic, as we say. He's a cut to the chase.
Yeah, he's a straight shooter. He's a straight shooter. He's legit. He's been on the front lines, and it was good to catch up with him. All right,
definitely.
Now that's our show for the week. You gotta have hope. Please visit us at Facebook. Please visit us at facebook.com/map2020. And
you want to say anything about next week?
I don't know yet.
Well, you're not going to be around, right?
I don't know. All right. No, I'm going to do the show from LA.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
We're
good.
Be from LA. So we will see you next week on The Map.
The Map.
There it is.
Give me a call.